Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank everybody for being here today. And Miss Eddy, I want to join in on thanking you for your testimony. It reminds me of a Bible passage. Luke 6:38 says, "A good measure will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back." And you're giving a lot today, and we appreciate it very much. I also want to just touch on what we've talked about. It's been a great hearing. I think we have a lot of common ground here. It's good to see. But I own some apartments, and I'll tell you, and we've touched on it, everybody's touched on it, the biggest problem is not the rates, but the rates are based on interest, they're based on local jurisdiction, and they're based on inflation. You know, we'd love to charge less, so that's something we get to work on. It looks like we all agree to that. So let me just start saying, and also you said you lost your train of thought. You can be a congressman. No problem. That happens all the time. So American families and businesses have been feeling the impacts of runaway inflation for far too long. We've heard it today. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco confirmed what Republicans have been warning about for the past 2 years. Reckless government spending contributed to the price increases that we are all experiencing as a real problem. I'm in the car business, so I can tell you all about that. It was irresponsible to think we could spend trillions of dollars and expect there to be no negative consequences. So rather than recognizing the ramifications of their policy decisions, my Democratic colleagues seem to have doubled down their belief that inflation can be tamed with even more government spending. Simply look at the bills attached to this hearing. There are billions of dollars in new federal programs that will make prices even worse off and higher. So let's be very clear. You can't spend your way out of this inflationary cycle. So Mr. Holtz-Eakin, can you discuss how the policies attached to this hearing, including the entirety of the $3 trillion Build Back Better, which everybody's talked about, will further contribute to the inflation all Americans are currently facing?
By and large, they continue the tradition of demand subsidies, especially in housing. There's a long tradition of that in the federal budget, and yet we are here with an enormous affordable housing crisis and large inflation. Seems to me we should learn the lesson and try something else.
Right. Now, the mismatch between housing supply and demand has been getting continually worse each year. And this is a total problem with everything. There's more demand than we have. I'm in the car business. We don't have any vehicles to sell, but there's a lot of demand, and that's ramping up inflation. So this has driven home prices up to their recent highs and made home ownership unrealistic for many Americans. And when you hear people talk about a 50-year mortgage, that's pretty scary. And as we look for solutions to this problem, we must focus on the supply side of this equation instead of programs that will create more demand for housing and continue the inflationary cycle. So if we incentivize the private sector, which is always good, to build new housing units, it will begin to alleviate the upward price pressure. So unfortunately, supply chain issues and labor shortages are making the numbers more challenging for the private sector to make these types of large investments. I believe the tax code can be used to help make the economics of these deals work. So, Mr. Zandi, you discussed some tax credits in your testimony that could help solve some of the problems. Could you elaborate on these suggestions and how they would allow the private sector, someone like me and others, to invest in new housing units?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to incent builders to go out and build more homes as fast as possible, and we want them to build mostly affordable rental. We need housing across the housing stock, but the most acute problem is for affordable rental property. And I mentioned 3 different tax credits in my written testimony. We talked about LIHTC. That's tried and true, and I think very effective. Another tax credit I think that I think we should do is around the Neighborhood Home Investment Act, which helps with rehabilitation. You know, as you know, in many communities, both urban, rural, you know, you can renovate and buy land, renovate, buy old property, renovate, buy old buildings, renovate, and the market value is too low to cover the cost of that renovation. So this tax credit would help builders and others defray that cost, and so we get more renovation of this old housing stock that we have in different parts of the country. And then the third is the new market tax credit. Again, tried and true, and there's a lot of bipartisan support for it. And that really is incredibly effective at building out underserved communities. It helps not only with affordable housing, but it helps with healthcare centers and community centers and healthy food, all the things that are critical to making housing work for a community. So I think I focus on those three things. And again, those programs are in place. They're very well understood by everyone who's participating in them. And I think we can just juice them up a little bit. And I think we can get a lot more housing supply here in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield my time back.
The gentleman